What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another fun video for you guys. This one looking at a Rakdos list. Rotting Unsealing. This is one of my very favorite cards in recent sets. Sarkhan's Unsealing. It's a 4-mana enchantment. When you cast a creature spell with power 4, 5, or 6, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to any target. Whenever you cast a spell with power 7 or greater, Sarkhan's Unsealing deals 4 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. This is super powerful. It's not an enter the battlefield trigger, so it doesn't work with like tokens or reanimation or anything like that. It is a cast trigger, so it works really well against like counter spells and things like that. If you can resolve this, even if your opponent counters your creature, you still get the cast trigger and get to deal 4 damage to any target or 4 damage to all creatures, planeswalkers, and your opponent's face. So this is just super powerful. Obviously, there's some really great 7 and 8 powered creatures that can trigger this that we will see, but we're going to go back to our 1-drop slot here. Just the 2 of Samut's Sprint. Instant speed, target creature gets +2/+1 and haste until end of turn, and scry 1. So if we can kind of get our Unsealing down and then play one of our creatures and we have a red mana open, we can give that creature haste after we've basically wiped the board. And then we give it a nice +2/+1 boost, and we get to scry to kind of fix our next draw to find another creature that will trigger Unsealing and that kind of thing. So the way we're going to get there is 4 Dusk Legion Zealots. It's a 1/1 for 2. It's not great. However, when it enters, we get to draw a card, and of course we're in black, so we do lose 1 life. So this is just there as a 1/1 to kind of chump block in the early game, draw us a card to kind of help us find that 4th land, to find that Sarkhan's Unsealing, to find that creature that's going to trigger Unsealing, and just kind of buy us a little bit of time, or even in certain cases just kind of chip in for damage a little bit. Another way we can do that is Viashino Pyromancer. It's a 2/1 for 2. When it enters, it deals 2 damage to your target player or planeswalker. So it doesn't hit creatures, but just the fact that it can hit planeswalkers or players is super powerful. And another way to kind of push across damage, since we're trying to do it with Unsealing. Another way we can do that is Kroxa. 6/6 for 2. And of course you have to sacrifice it because unless it escapes. However, when it enters, your opponent has to discard a card, and if they, depending on what they discard, they could lose 3 life. And of course, having the escape just means you can play this in the later turns if the game kind of drags on a little bit. It's removal heavy decks and things like that. And then forcing them to discard in the early turns as well is nice. And for some hard removal, of course, we're running my boy Murderous Rider. Most of the time, the Unsealing can kind of help you clear the board, but sometimes you just need some hard removal for bigger creatures, planeswalkers, or you just don't find your Unsealing in time, or you have it out and can't seem to find a creature for some reason. This is just some nice hard removal, and then you can just play it down as a 2/3 lifelinker as well to kind of chump block or even attack in, depending on the situation. And of course, Rotting Regisaur, part of the name of the deck, 7 power, 3-drop. Obviously, it does have the downside of discarding a card. But since our curve is actually pretty low for this style of deck, it's not always bad if you have extra lands. You just kind of discard those. I mean, you really don't need more than 5 lands anytime for this list. And so a lot of times you don't even mind playing this on turn 3. But most of the time, obviously, you do want to hope you can get your Unsealing down. And then, boom, drop your Regisaur for just 3 mana. And potentially even have additional mana open to, Dusk Legion Zealot or Viashino Pyromancer. Or, you'll have red, obviously, from the Unsealing, so you can just give Samut Sprint after you've cleared the board and just swing in for 9 damage after you've just dealt 4 to everything. That's just stupid. And of course, Bonecrusher Giant, the nice stomp ability, kind of helps keep the board clear against smaller creatures in earlier turns while you're kind of getting set up. And then a 4-powered creature that can trigger Unsealing or just come down on turn 3 if you need it to. Works really well. You can kind of start tagging for damage or just kind of chump block for you while you're continuing to get set up. And for some additional hard removal, a couple Ravenous Chupacabras. When it enters, destroy target creature and opponent controls. So this is just kind of another way to kind of get around any creatures that are bigger than Unsealing can hit with its 4 damage. And 4 of Inferno Hellion, 7/3 trample for 4. So that sounds pretty good, but if it attacks or blocks, you shuffle it back into your library. So a little bit of downside. But having 7 power trample, a 7 power that triggers Unsealing to do 4 damage to everything, totally worth it. Shovels back into your library, so that means you can just draw it again and get additional triggers off your Unsealing. That's just beautiful. Of course, all 4 Unsealings because, man, I love this card. Even if, and this actually does stack, so if you have multiples of these, you will deal 4 damage to multiple targets. Or if you have, your 7 power creature, you do 8 damage to everything, which is just stupid. And of course, 5 mana, Clackbridge Troll, an 8 powered creature that triggers Unsealing for 5 mana. Damn, of course we're running that. All 4 of Trample, Haste, not even legendary. When it enters the battlefield, your opponent does get 3 0/1 white goat creature tokens, and then they get to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of combat. And if they do, the troll is tapped. But however, you do gain 3 life, and you do get to draw a card. So it actually even works just fine. Gaining some life, drawing a card, and then if you can draw into something that triggers Unsealing the following turn, you can just clear all those goat tokens and whatever other creatures they might have out, and then they don't even have the option to sacrifice. You can just swing it for 8 damage plus all the Unsealing procs you've gotten as well. So yeah, that's the top end of the deck. I mean, we're not even running any 6 drops or anything like that. Just all 4 and 5 drops trigger an Unsealing. So yeah, nice to have a low curve. So we're just running 24 lands. We got a couple of Castle Locthwain, so if the game just kind of drag out a little bit for removal heavy matchups, that kind of thing. This kind of a way to kind of dig for those answers. Then we got the 6 swamps. We got 8 basic mountains, all 4 blood crypts, and of course, nice having to play access to Dragonskull Summit again. Of course, that's a 4 of. On the sideboard, we got some Agonizing Remorses for those mid-rangey control matchups, just a little bit of hand disruption. A couple of Sorcerous Spyglass to kind of shut down planeswalkers. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with doesn't shut down the static abilities, but just means they can't activate. So it can work with other things as well, like Witch's Oven, Search for Azcanta. Of course, the activated part, so the flipped Search for Azcanta, the flipped Legion Landing, things like that, so they can't keep getting triggers off of that. Pharika's Libation just as a sacrifice for creatures or enchantments, so it gets around like hexproof, and it gets around like those enchantment gods and things like that. And of course, life gain is super popular strategy, so we're running 3 Rampaging Ferocidons, 3/3 with Menace. Players can't gain life, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So it works super well against like mono white, like I said, and just having a 3/3 with Menace is a pretty nice creature in and of itself, and especially when you've kind of cleared the board on your opponent's side, or if they just have 1 big creature around, the Menace gets around that because they need 2 or more creatures to block. And some additional hard removal or exile removal in the form of Eat to Extinction as a 2 of for exiling creatures or planeswalkers. And then for some hard board wipes, if since you can't always rely on Sarkhan's Unsealing, sometimes you just don't find it or you don't find it in time. So 1 of Ritual of Soot and 1 of Storm's Wrath, so it just kind of depends on what you're up against. So yeah, that's pretty much the deck, and let's jump into some best of 3, see how we do. Alright, historic ranks. It's so nice to have a best of 3 historic that was not ranked, so you just kind of play casually, not have to deal with some of these degenerate decks that are running around out there, like Field of the Dead, which should never have been unbanned. Alright, we got a Kroxa and Unsealing and a Chupacabra if we need some hard removal here. So hopefully our opponent doesn't get off too crazy of a start. And we should be in good shape. Kroxa can always get rid of one of their cards and buy us a little bit of time perhaps. 76 card deck. I just don't understand these oversized decks. Arena kind of has a way of fixing these draws so people can kind of think, oops, I don't like the way cards move around. That's so annoying how these, the Arena Shuffler seems to kind of fix their draws a lot of the time. I mean, if you run this in paper, you're going to have no consistency to it whatsoever, and you're not going to have a good time, but the Shuffler algorithm on Arena seems to kind of work in these decks' favors, at least often enough that people continue to play them. I mean, 60 isn't just some arbitrary thing. If you want a consistent focused deck, 60 cards is where you want to be. So they did discard the land and lost 3 life. This Fountain of Renewal is kind of annoying, but Unsealing can get pretty crazy. We go for the greedy play and just wait for our Unsealing next turn, and then start crashing in. It also buys us some time for discarding, if we don't quite know what our opponent is up to. Okay, yep, we're on Orzhov. Oh, vampires. Okay. As long as I don't have a way to deal with our Unsealing, we're in good shape. And if they do, we do have the Chupacabra. Get rid of this Maverick Fine. It's a pretty fun card. Hit for 2, make it a token, and nothing else. Alright, we'll clear the board. Hit them for 4. And next, I think we discard the Clackbridge Troll. If we don't find another land, and they're going to have potentially a lot of tokens and smaller creatures if they're in vampires, they could be running things like Call to the Feast or things like that. So we got a Chupacabra. We're going to gain a life off the Revenge of Ravens, which is super annoying, but Unsealing is pushing quite a bit of damage across. If they do have a board clear, then that just puts us that much closer to a Kroxa. If they play a creature, then we can just Chupacabra and swing in for 14. Okay, gain 3, draw a card. Okay, and they're dead. Well, it's not showing what we have. Let's just crash in. Yeah, that's the problem with these over 60 card decks. It's just not really very focused. I mean, you're playing vampires, but that was the only vampire you had, and then you're running Underworld Dreams. So we definitely want these Ferocidons so they don't get the life gain. I think we can trim off one. I think we want all 3 in. Libation could be good as well. Let me trim off the Chupacabras. It's kind of awkward because I'm not really sure how we got a very good feel for what their deck is doing. Maybe we just want to shave off some of these Clackbridge Trolls. Maybe we just want enchantment. We'll try like that. Got a couple of Pharika's Libations, so they probably have the Banishing Lights, Prison Realm, Ixalan's Binding, those white enchantments. And kind of answer those. I mean, this would be an awesome hand if we had some lands, but I guess Murderous Rider? Maybe Kroxa? Maybe Murderous Rider would be better to keep and then ditching the Kroxa. Our opponent down to 5. So that's good for us. Godless Shrine tapped. Johnny's welcome. Okay. I mean, it's one thing to play life gain, it's another thing to play Underworld Dreams and things like that. You kind of want to do one or the other and not try to force both. But, you know, what do I know, right? Dust Legion's up. Look for that. Dig for that Unsealing. Okay, they had a couple 1/1 lifelinkers. They don't have one card in hand, so I think we'll just go for the Ferocidon. Just hold back the Zealot block. And next turn we can Kroxa plus Zealot. Sometimes you want to wait on the Ferocidon because you know your opponent probably has some removal. Well, they didn't attack, so I don't think they have any tricks in hand, so I think we're fine with attacking with the Ferocidon. I'll have to block with both. Okay. Maybe Kroxa first would have been the safer play. So they're stuck on 3 lands, so they have to discard something here. Underworld Dreams. Yeah. Ferocidon is going to ping us, but at least we're, you know, drawing some cards and we're shutting down their life gain. And if we can find some relevant spells, then we'll be in good shape. So next one we're looking at Pyromancer plus Blood Crypt, depending on what we draw into. I hope we can keep this Ferocidon on the battlefield as long as possible. You don't gain life, you lose a life. Now we're going to have to hold our Ferocidon back because the Death Touch will kill our Ferocidon. Unless for some reason they attack with both their 1/1 tokens. Yeah, Unsealing is where we want to be to do that. Blood Crypt, there you go. We have our Kroxa, but nothing else in our graveyard, so hopefully we can find something fun. Nope. Let's get our Pyromancer down. Might as well get our Blood Crypt down since we're not going to be Castle Locthwain just yet. So we take 1 from the Ferocidon, but we hit 1 for 2. We just wait until we find one of our creatures to clear the board, and then we can start attacking. Actually push some serious damage across. For now they have pretty easy chump blocks. Bulbous Citadel could be kind of scary here. Okay, they won't gain life from the Revenge, but it does still ping us. We're just hoping for our big boys here to trigger Unsealing. That is our path to victory here. So definitely looking for Castle Locthwain, and depending on what we draw, we'll just want to might want to just go digging with our Castle Locthwain. Down to 4. We'll take 1 more from the Ferocidon, and if we can find anything to trigger Unsealing, then they are just dead. Find a Regisaur, that does it. Alright. Boom! Alright. I knew we'd get there. I knew we'd get there. So there you go, guys. Power of Sarkhan. Obviously there's different things you can do this. Dinosaurs. I've got a mono red list that I've been working on with this. I've definitely played around with Jund and things like that in the past. But yeah, I think this is kind of the most streamlined and maybe competitive version of Unsealing you can play, just because of the Regisaur and the Clackbridge Troll and things like that. So yeah, definitely a fun card to play around with. This is my particular preferred build at the moment. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.